is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
History is made in the Middle East, where leaders led by U.S. President Donald Trump signed a landmark peace plan in Egypt, bringing an end to decades of bloodshed between Israel and Hamas. A new era of hope begins in Gaza. A solemn day in Israel as the remains of 4 hostages are brought home for identification. Families mourn, authorities pay tribute, and the nation unites under the Gaza peace agreement. Tears and celebration in Ramallah as dozens of Palestinian prisoners walk free under the new ceasefire deal. Crowds line the streets, waving flags and cheering the long-awaited homecoming. A major diplomatic reset between India and Canada as both sides meet in New Delhi to rebuild strained ties after last year's controversy, marking a new chapter of cooperation and trust. Russia expands its naval footprint in Asia. Warships from the Pacific Fleet dock in Vietnam's Da Nang port, showcasing Moscow's stronger defense partnership and maritime diplomacy in the region. Political heat rises in Bolivia as presidential contenders present their final visions ahead of the high-stakes October 19 runoff. Security and economic reform take center stage. China's trade with Southeast Asia surges nearly 10% in the first 9 months of the year, highlighting Beijing's growing economic influence across the ASEAN region. And growing pressure on the ICI as alleged ghost flood control projects emerge in Luzon. No names yet, but a contempt warning looms over Zaldo Co amid calls to fight corruption responsibly. I'm Prince Tripoli. Newsline World starts now. No names of politicians or government officials have yet surfaced as directly involved in the alleged anomalous flood control projects in the Philippines, according to the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI. Amid a series of protest actions, former Philippine National Police Chief and now ICI Special Advisor urged the public not to let anger or revolution be the means to fight corruption. This report from Jason Rubico.
Former PNP Chief General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. has officially taken his oath as the new Special Advisor of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI. In his speech, Azurin acknowledged the intent of those staging protests against corruption, but stressed that revolution on the streets will never be the solution.
Real change cannot be achieved through division, chaos, or violence. We have seen in our history that revolutions in the streets may topple governments, but they do not always heal a nation. Today, we are called not to fight one another, but to stand together, not through protests or rallies, but through truth, unity, and justice. Let us expose corruption, not with anger, but with justice.
The ICI will now focus on conducting technical inspections of over 400 suspected ghost flood control projects across the country. Initial data from the commission show that most of the questionable projects are located in Luzon, based on 8,000 validated projects from 2018 to 2024. According to the ICI, after the validation process, a case buildup will be conducted to complete the documents to be submitted to the Office of the Ombudsman. The commission estimates that within 2 to 3 weeks, they may be able to refer the cases for filing. As of now, no names of politicians or government officials have reportedly surfaced as being directly involved in the anomalous flood control projects.
As of now, wala pa kaming nakikita na, but definitely, ang umpisa kasi ng investigation dyan is dun sa baba dun sa district, yan. We just follow yung paper trail.
The ICI has once again invited former Ako Bicol Representative Zaldo Co to appear at the Commission's hearing on October 14, 2025. According to ICI Executive Director Attorney Brian Hosaka, if Co once again fails to attend, the Commission will ask the Regional Trial Court to cite him in contempt.
Right now, the only option we have would be to cite him in contempt, but that's going to be a challenge, knowing that We all know that he's not in the country right now. As I mentioned before, there's no contempt powers by the ICI. So the process there is pupunta kami sa korte.
If the court grants the ICI's petition, it may result in the issuance of a warrant of arrest against the former congressman. Also invited by the ICI as resource persons are former House Speaker Martin Romualdez and Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman. Reporting for Newsline World, I am Jason Rubrico, SM9 News.
The Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal of the Duterte Youth Party list against the Commission on Election or COMELEC's decision to cancel its party registration. Based on the COMELEC en banc decision dated September 30 of this year, it denied the request for a temporary restraining order, writ of preliminary injunction, and status quo anti-order against the party's cancellation. The Supreme Court likewise denied the group's motion to hold a special raffle for their petition. However, the High Court still directed the Duterte Youth to submit a comment regarding the resolution. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. personally visited the victims of the powerful earthquake in Davao Oriental. The president immediately directed members of his cabinet to conduct 24-hour rescue and relief operations in the affected area. Presley Catarong reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. flew to Davao Oriental on Monday to personally deliver aid and lead relief operations in areas heavily affected by the series of earthquakes. The quakes with magnitudes of 7.4 and 6.8 struck the town of Manay on Friday, October 10. Among the places visited by the president was the field hospital set up outside the Davao Oriental Provincial Hospital Manay District in Barangay Central Manay Town, which is located near the earthquake's epicenter. The DOPH, the only hospital in Manay, was completely destroyed by the powerful earthquakes. Marcos also visited Manay National High School, where classrooms and a faculty room were totally damaged. The president likewise proceeded to the Regional Evacuation Center in Barangay Central, Tarragona Town, which, based on the assessment of local authorities, was deemed unsafe and therefore not opened to accommodate evacuees. Next, he visited the Tarragona Municipal Grounds Evacuation Center, where tents had been set up as temporary shelters in front of the Tarragona Municipal Hall. Around 255 families are temporarily residing there. The Department of Social Welfare and Development distributed family food packs, non-food items, and hot meals through their mobile kitchen program. DSWD also provided 10,000 pesos in financial assistance to each of the 35 families whose homes were completely destroyed. In front of the Tarragona Municipal Hall, President Marcos held a situation briefing with cabinet members as well as national and local government officials to outline measures for assisting affected residents.
The number of affected families in the whole Davao Oriental is 166,384. The totally damaged houses is 503. The partially damaged houses is 8,055. The internally displaced person number of families is 90,297. Individuals is 65,716. Death is 3. Injured is 323.
The president immediately directed cabinet officials to carry out 24-hour rescue and relief operations following the earthquake that struck Davao Oriental on Friday.
But in any case, we already know
Yes, sir.
what is the numbers that we need to supply for
feed,
relief goods.
Yes, sir.
And then I saw the kitchen.
Yes.
All of this.
Nakaset up na ho siya.
Nakaset up na. Okay, modular shelter units. Okay, the modular pag natayo na yan, may kasama yan na toilet facilities, water supply, electrical supply, common kitchen, yung para kumpleto naman ang sa pangangailangan ng nandoon.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Presley Catarong, SM9 News.
Despite changes in leadership, the Department of Justice is pushing forward with its investigations into the missing Sabongeros, cockfighters, and alleged corruption and flood control projects, vowing to file strong cases based on solid evidence, not questionable testimonies. This report from Margot Gonzalez.
The DOJ, now under the leadership of Officer in Charge Frederick Vida, has no plans to drop the investigation into the case of the missing cockfighters. According to Vida, this is among the directives of former Justice Secretary and now Ombudsman Jesus Crispin de Mulya. At present, the agency is conducting a preliminary investigation against Atong Ang, Gretchen Barreto, and over 60 other respondents for complaints of murder and serious illegal detention.
Partikular na binanggit niya, kailangan patuloy na umasa ang ating mga kababayan na patuloy nilang kakampi ang kagawaran ng katarungan para makamit yung hustisya na hinahanap.
Meanwhile, the DOJ and the Ombudsman have joined forces to hold officials involved in corruption in flood control projects accountable. According to Vida, officials with a salary grade below 27 fall under the jurisdiction of the DOJ. At present, the agency continues to gather testimonies. Vida clarified that interviews with witnesses cannot be live-streamed as a precautionary measure and to prevent the accused from gaining access to the witnesses' statements.
Tandaan po natin, may mga kalaban po tayo. Sino po ang kalaban ng sambayanan dito? Ang kalaban po ng sambayanan dito ay yung nagsamantala sa sistema. Diba? Ang gusto nga natin, mapanagot sila. Pag kayo po ay nanonood, kasama po ang media po ay ginagawang paraan para sila'y makapanood, nanonood din po yung mga abogado. Nanonood din po yung mga gumawa ng mali. Kaya dapat po tulong-tulong tayo na hindi po tayo mabasa ng ating mga gustong mapanagot dito sa usaping to. Kaya po, umasa po kayo. Magtira pa kayo ng kahit po kapiraso pang tiwala.
Meanwhile, in the DOJ's interview with the Diskaya couple, Vida openly stated that they are still not satisfied with the information being disclosed. He said they have yet to officially receive the couple's tell-all affidavits. The Diskayas currently have a pending application before the DOJ to become state witnesses.
Hanggang ngayon po, hindi pa po tayo, wala po tayo estado na masaya na ang kagawaran sa kanilang inilalahad. Kaya nga po, yung sinasabi ng kanilang abogado, na sinasabi niyong tell-all, makikita ho at pag-aaralan po. Pag-aaralan po ng ating mga prosecutors. Ang kailangan pong masusi, pag-aralan dito mismo ng kagawaran, ay may good faith ho ba? Diba? Talaga bang inilalahad niya o siya ay nagiging selective lang sa kanyang pinapangalanan?
In addition, they have already been given a timeline to disclose everything they know, but Vida emphasized that filing of cases does not depend on the testimonies of the Diskaya couple.
If we don't find something satisfactory, we will file the appropriate cases with or without the state witnesses. We will build the cases based on the evidence we have. But what the public, what we can assure the Filipino people is that we will only file strong cases.
Nangangalap din po ang ating NBI, ang ating kapulisan, ng ebidensya independent of the statements. So, yan po, titingnan po natin sa kabuuan bago tayo maglahad o magbigay ng pahayag na kung anong kaso ang isasampa.
However, the DOJ still cannot say when it will be able to file formal charges.
No one in this department cannot tell you a definite timetable, especially with our new ombudsman. Kasi those cases have been referred to the office of the ombudsman. But still, we understand the urgency. We understand the urgency. We're fully aware of the urgency. And we're doing things so that we will expedite the filing of the appropriate cases.
For God and the beloved Philippines, this has been Margaret Gonzalez, SMNI News.
Malacanang has assured that the government has sufficient funds to sustain disaster response efforts despite the successive calamities affecting the country. At the same time, the Department of Social Welfare and Development also guaranteed that the agency has ample funds and relief supplies as the year draws to a close. Wrestling Katarang is back for more news.
Malacanang assured that the government has set aside an alternative source of funding in case the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund is depleted due to the series of calamities hitting the country. According to Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro, their office has spoken with the Department of Budget and Management, which confirmed the 12.005 billion pesos remains in the government's contingent fund. If the contingent fund is exhausted, the government may draw additional funds from the program appropriations under the Strengthening Assistance for Government Infrastructure Program, provided that there is excess revenue.
Nakausap po mismo natin ang pamunuan ng DBM at according to DBM, Kung magkakaroon man at madideplete po ang NDRRM funds, meron pa rin po tayong 12.005 billion sa contingent fund. At kung mauubos man po ang contingent fund dahil sunod-sunod po ang nangyayaring calamity sa ating bansa, maaasahan po natin kung may excess revenue, makakuha po tayo sa unprogrammed appropriations mula sa SAGIP.
Meanwhile, Castro stated that she has not yet received any report on whether President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has spoken with Congress regarding his request for additional funding for emergency response. The Department of Social Welfare and Development assured that the agency's funds and relief supplies remain sufficient despite the approaching end of the year, alongside its continued preparations for possible upcoming disasters. DSWD spokesperson Assistant Secretary Irene Dumlao reported that as of 6 a.m. on Monday, the agency still has more than 2 million family food packs stored in its warehouses, while its standby funds amount to over 660 million pesos.
Alam niyo po, tayo ay nagpapasalamat lagi at mulit-muli sa Department of Budget and Management sapagkat yung mga request po natin for QRF replenishment ay agaran din po na naaaproba.
Because of this, the DSWD's disaster response operations continue without interruption, including the procurement of raw materials for food packs and non-food items. According to the official, prepositioning relief goods is crucial to ensure the immediate delivery of assistance to affected areas. Aside from food and relief goods, the agency also provides emergency cash transfers to disaster-stricken communities, such as those in Cagayan, Masbate, Romblon, and Mindoro, which were hit by recent typhoons.
Para nga matiyak na magpapatuloy ito, especially kinakailangan din nating i-assist yung mga naapektuhan nitong mga nagdaang lindol, ay magre-request po tayo ng karagdagang pangpondo mula sa Department of Budget and Management to sustain our disaster response efforts.
Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Kerseling Katarong, SMNI News.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. led the opening ceremony of the Union Water Impounding Dam in Claveria, Cagayan on Tuesday. This significant infrastructure project aims to enhance flood control, irrigation systems, and climate resilience in the province. Upon arrival, Marcos unveiled the project marker and personally inspected the dam's key features, including its opening and structural components. The Union Dam, costing 500 million pesos, spans the Kabicungan River in barangays Union and Cadcadir. It is a flagship project developed jointly by the National Irrigation Administration, or NIA, and the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, under the agency's Katubigan program. The dam is designed to irrigate over 1,050 hectares of farmland, benefiting more than 1,000 farmers. It features slope protection and drainage systems to reduce river siltation and slope erosion, helping prevent flooding in agricultural zones. According to Paula Perenya, NIA Region 2 Public Relations Officer, the Union Dam is part of a larger network of water impounding projects in barangays Tabugan and Baksay. Once completed, this network will provide irrigation support to more than 3,000 farmers across Cagayan. Up next, a solemn day in Israel as the remains of 4 hostages are brought home for identification. Farmers mourn, authorities pay tribute, and the nation unites under the Gaza peace agreement. Tears and celebration in Ramallah as dozens of Palestinian prisoners walk free under the new ceasefire deal. Crowds line the streets, waving flags and cheering the long-awaited homecoming. Russia expands its naval footprint in Asia. Warships from the Pacific Fleet dock in Vietnam's Da Long port, showcasing Moscow's stronger defense partnership and maritime diplomacy in the region. Newsline World will be back after the break.
Maging alerto at handa tuwing may bagyo. Upang manatiling ligtas, narito ang ilang mahahalagang paalala. Manatili sa loob ng bahay. Iwasan ang paglabas, lalo na kung malakas ang ulan at hangin. mag-imbak ng pagkain at malinis na tubig, maghanda ng emergency kit, manatiling updated sa lagay ng panahon, maghanda ng mga flashlight at extra baterya, panatilihing fully charged ang iyong cellphone, i-secure ang mahahalagang dokumento sa waterproof na lalagyan, patayin ang kuryente, gas at tubig kung may banta ng pagbaha, alamin ang iyong local emergency hotlines, putulin o tapyasan ang mga sanga ng puno na maaaring mabuwal sa malakas na ulan at hangin, lumikas agad kung inabisuhan ng mga otoridad, maging ligtas at maging handa sa panahon ng kalamidad. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Sa panahon ng tagulan, hindi lang baha at ulan ang dapat bantayan, kundi pati na rin ang mga sakit na pwedeng makahawa. At dahil ngayon ay rainy season, nagbabala ang Department of Health laban sa tinatawag na wild diseases. 4 na klase ng sakit na karaniwang nakukuha ng tao tuwing maulan. Ito ang W o waterborne diseases gaya ng pagdudumi o gastroenteritis. I o influenza-like illnesses gaya ng sipon, ubo at lagnat. L o leptospirosis na maaaring makuha mula sa ihi ng mga daga sa baha. At D o dengue na dala ng mga lamok. Kapag baha, mas mabilis kumalat ang mikrobyo, kaya't ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at agad maligo matapos lumusong sa baha. Ano ang dapat gawin para maiwasan ng wild diseases? Tumutok sa weather updates. Magsuot ng kapote at bota. Siguraduhing malinis ang iniinom na tubig. Agad kumonsulta sa health center kung may nararamdamang sintomas. Mainam din gawin ang 40 o taob, taktak, tuyo at takip para maiwasan ang dengue sa bahay at komunidad. Maglinis, magmasid, mag-ingat. Labanan ang wild diseases ngayong tag-ulan. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Ikaw ba ay namomroblema sa taas ng electric bill buwan-buwan? Huwag mag-alala, narito ang ilang paraan upang makatipid sa kuryente. Patayin ang mga ilaw at appliances kapag hindi ginagamit. Sa halip ay gumamit ng natural na liwanag upang makatipid sa kuryente. Tanggalin sa saksakan ang mga appliances kung hindi ginagamit. Iwasan ang paggamit ng maraming appliances ng sabay-sabay. Gumamit ng LED bulbs. Ito ay mas tipid sa kuryente kumpara sa mga incandescent at fluorescent bulbs. Regular na linisin ang mga appliances tulad ng electric fan, aircon vents at refrigerator. Magkaroon ng takdang araw sa isang linggo sa pamamalansya at paglalaba. Gumamit ng energy-efficient appliances. Tandaan, maging wais sa paggamit ng kuryente upang makatipid para mas gumaan ang buhay. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Hoy, magnanakaw! Tingin! Pulis ka! Hala, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Uy, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Ano kayang gagawin ko? Ipamimigay ko yung konti para tumigil sila sa pag-iingay.
Pare, magnanakaw, namimigay ng pera.
Eto ang sayo.
Wow! Ang bait ng magnanakaw!
Eto naman sayo.
Kuya, yung
eto
share ko! Sana
Huwag ka nang maingay. Eto pa. Tama na yan. Nakikipalato lang kayo eh. Huwag nang maingay. Diba? Konti lang pinamigay ko, mabait na ako. Tahimik na sila, easy. Ngayon, pwede ko na tong suluhin.
Masaya ang mga tao, pero tama po ba ito? Di po ba ang nakikinabang sa magnanakaw ay kasabwat ng magnanakaw?
Ikaw, Kinukonsenti mo ba ang legal na korupsyon?
Maging ligtas, maging handa. Narito ang ilang paalala kung sakaling tumama ang lindol. Maghanda ng emergency kits na may lamang flashlight, pito, first aid kit, tubig at pagkain. Alamin ang emergency exits sa inyong bahay, paaralan o opisina. Habang lumilindol, magtago sa ilalim ng matibay na lamesa upang maprotektahan ang sarili sa mga nahuhulog na bagay. Lumayo sa mga bintana at mabibigat na gamit na maaring mahulog. Kung ikaw ay nasa labas, lumayo sa mga gusali, puno o poste na maaaring matumba. Kung ikaw ay nagmamaneho, itabi at ihinto ang sasakyan at lumabas. Pagkatapos ng lindol, gamitin ang hagdan sa paglabas ng gusali at huwag gumamit ng elevator. Maging alerto sa aftershocks at manatili sa open space kung kinakailangan. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa anumang sakuna. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
And we're back. A historic day in the Middle East as U.S. President Donald Trump and world leaders gathered in Egypt to sign a declaration bringing peace to Gaza, ending years of bloodshed between Israel and Hamas. This report.
At the summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Trump joined the leaders of Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey in sailing what he called a new and beautiful day.
This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up, too. It's going to hold up.
Earlier, addressing the Israeli Knesset, Trump declared that the long and painful nightmare is finally over. Under the agreement, Israel will release 250 Palestinian prisoners and over 1,700 detainees held during 2 years of fighting in exchange for the final 20 living in Israeli hostages held by Hamas. The remains of 28 deceased hostages were also expected to be returned, though a group representing their families said only 4 bodies would be transferred initially. In Egypt, Trump appeared in high spirits alongside President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, calling the event the biggest deal of all. Meanwhile, Sisi awarded Trump the Order of the Nile, Egypt's highest honor, calling it a historic milestone that ends an agonizing chapter. Among the more than 20 world leaders attending the ceremony were British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas was also present after being barred from the UN General Assembly just a week earlier. While the ceasefire has taken effect, questions, however, remain about the Palestinian Authority's future role in Gaza. Trump said the second phase of negotiations is already underway, signaling what he called the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Phase 2 is starting, and the phases are all a little bit mixed in with each other. You're going to start cleaning up. You look at Gaza, it needs a lot of cleanup. That's why when I talked in my speech, I talked about the debris. I use the word debris. That's debris times 10. So, but they're gonna really do a job. They have a lot of power. In another room, you have some of the wealthiest nations in the world. All leaders, the big leaders are here, the emirs and the kings and everybody, and it's a very interesting group.
Trump's Gaza peace deal marks the first comprehensive ceasefire in the conflict in over 2 years, one that leaders hope will finally hold. And after this historic event, Trump said his next focus will be ending the Russia-Ukraine war.
In Tel Aviv, the remains of 4 Israeli hostages were brought home for identification following the release by Hamas under the Gaza peace agreement. Israeli police escorted the vehicles carrying the remains to the National Center for Forensic Medicine. Along the route, mourners lined the streets, some holding flowers and waving Israeli flags in a solemn tribute. The 4 have been named as Guy Iluz, Yossi Sharabi, Bipin Joshi, and Daniel Petiers, and Daniel Pritz. Authorities say the remains will undergo formal identification procedures before being released to their families. The exchange came alongside the release of 20 living hostages handed over to the Red Cross and later transferred to the military base in Israel. Hamas has yet to return the bodies of 24 slain hostages. In Ramallah, dozens of Palestinian prisoners released under the Gaza ceasefire deal returned home to cheering crowds and tearful families. Buses carrying the detainees rolled into the city on Monday, where relatives waved flags, chanted, and held up photos of loved ones. The homecomings marked the first large-scale prisoner release under the trust between Israel and Hamas. According to the Palestinian news agency, 96 prisoners serving life or long-term sentences were freed from Ofer prison and arrived in Ramallah. In total, 250 prisoners with long or life sentences and over 1,700 detainees from Gaza arrested after October 7, 2023 were released as part of the exchange. Russian warships have docked in Vietnam's central city of Da Nang, a symbolic stop in Moscow expanding naval presence across the Pacific. The visit marks another show of Russia's maritime diplomacy in the region. Justin Azario reports.
Three Russian warships have arrived at Da Nang port in central Vietnam for a goodwill visit, the Russian Defense Ministry announced Monday. The fleet, composed of the Marshal Shaposhnikov frigate, the Grimyashi corvette, and the Boris Botoma tankers, sailed through Vietnamese waters before docking at the port. Video released by the ministry showed Vietnamese naval officers welcoming the Russian crews during an official ceremony at the harbor. During their stay, Russian sailors are expected to join cultural and sporting exchanges with personnel from the Vietnam People's Navy and tour several local attractions. The Defense Ministry said the vessels left Vladivostok on 1st of October for an extended mission through the Pacific Rim and other key maritime zones, but the ministry did not specify when the footage of the arrival was filmed. Justin Azario, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Madagascar's embattled President Andre Rajoelina reported fled the country as protests against him drag on. He says he is in a safe location following what he called an assassination and coup attempt by soldiers and political rivals. Carla Abellana files this report.
President Rajoelina has fled Madagascar following days of Gen Z-led protests across the country. French broadcaster RFI reported that Rajoelina was evacuated Sunday via French military aircraft, but his current location remains unclear. Rajoelina earlier revealed that there have been multiple attempts on his life since September 25. The demonstrations were initially over severe power and water shortages, but have grown into a nationwide movement demanding his resignation. The newly appointed Chief of Army Staff, General Demosthene Picolas, has called on Madagascar's military to stay united and restore order after weeks of deadly protests. According to the United Nations, at least 22 people have been killed since the unrest began, some in clashes with security forces, others in looting and criminal violence. Rajoelina disputes that figure, saying there were only 12 confirmed deaths, describing the victims as looters. The 51-year-old leader first seized power in 2009 through mass protest. Rajoelina was re-elected in 2018 and 2023, but both votes were marred by opposition, boycotts, and corruption allegations. For God and My Beloved Philippines, Carla Abellana, SMNI News.
A major train crash in eastern Slovakia left more than 100 passengers injured, prompting a full-scale emergency response from authorities. Over 100 people were hurt after two passengers' trains collided in the eastern part of the country's coastal region. The accident happened near the village of Jablonov nad Turno, roughly 55 kilometers west of the regional capital. Rescue teams rushed to the scene, where both trains derailed from the tracks after impact. Paramedics treated the injured on site, while air ambulances transported several passengers to nearby hospitals for urgent care. Officials confirmed that no deaths have been recorded so far, though many suffered serious injuries. Preliminary findings point to a possible collision on a stretch of railway where the tracks converge into one. Emergency crews continued rescue operations throughout the morning as investigators began looking into what caused the crash. The residents of Barangay Kalanan, Tabogon, Cebu were overwhelmed with gratitude after receiving aid from SMNI Foundation Incorporated. In the midst of loss and suffering caused by the powerful earthquake, hope arrived at their doorsteps. Here's the report from Franco Baranda.
On September 30, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck the northern part of Cebu. In just a matter of seconds, it caused massive destruction to structures, livelihoods, and entire communities. Based on reports, more than 70 people lost their lives, 500 were injured, and over 100,000 homes were damaged. Some buildings, including schools, completely collapsed. One of the hardest hit areas was the municipality of Tabogon, which recorded the second highest level of destruction in northern Cebu. Barangay Kalanan, a remote village whose residents are mostly farmers and fishermen, was among the most severely affected. Schools that once served as centers of learning were temporarily converted into evacuation sites for families who fled their damaged homes. However, because the school buildings themselves were also damaged, evacuees were forced to sleep outside in tents and makeshift shelters. There, the residents faced extreme hardship and deprivation, lacking food, clean water, and basic necessities.
Ay mabigat na bigat sir bilang bilang guro na makita nimo yung building na mga bago pa yung building unya nasira lang isang iglap lang nasira sa aming araw-araw na kanang pag pupunta diri sa paaralan at ngayon nakita namin yung mga sira parang makato jud mo lo. Dahil kuan ang building nga makitaan bitaw nimo nga sus kasayang nya pila pa ka tuig nga mailisan. Luoy kayo ang mga bata. Nya karon no nagikuan ang mga bata kani evacuation ta ni nya karon di nang gyud mabakwitan nganhan na sila sa gawas. Sa usa lang ka kuan nawaan tanan nya mga makaingon mi nga unsaon na lang ang mga bata. Kanus pa mi maka klase nga di man gyud may unta tog na ay nahabilin wa gyud nahabilin nga room
yung kaba hindi mo mai-explain yung gaano ka yung pangamba mo kung anong mangyari sa mga bata yung inigaan namin hindi ka makatulog masakit isipin kasi sir tapos may pa ako magulang kasama ko din yung kabilang tent sila yun ang nakatulog diyan.
Hirap jud, hirap. Basta hirap jud. Grabe. Wa jud way kabutan yan. Bahala unsa mi ka mahirap basta na alam mi katulugan yan. Okay ra. Akong kaloyan akong mga apo. Kay naasa na po. Sa hitabo grabe kasakit yun kasakit way kabutangan kay inanganon patatulog na unta mi akong apo among namatan ba nas kamatayon namin Nya, ang akong naluyan, ang akong mga po kay grabe yung kagagmay pa. Dili pa sa iyo na mong gahimtan.
Amid the severe devastation and loss in Barangay Calanan, hope once again shone upon the residents with the arrival of SMNI Foundation Incorporated. This was not the first time that SMNI Foundation extended assistance to those affected by the earthquake in northern Cebu. In fact, this relief operation in Tabogon marked the third consecutive day of their continuous efforts to reach and respond to affected communities. Even before arriving here, the foundation had already extended aid to the towns of Daan Bantayan and San Remigio. Each beneficiary received sacks of rice, pails filled with grocery items, gallons of clean water, and ready-to-eat food packs. Because of this, the entire gymnasium of Calanan Elementary School was filled with joy and excitement, not only because of the abundant assistance brought by
Foundation and sponsor. Very big thank you.
the aid and compassion shown by SMNI Foundation Incorporated, together with its generous donors, provided not only physical support but also hope and inspiration to the children, teachers, and families who lost their homes. With every sack of rice, pail filled with grocery items, gallon of water, and warm meal they receive, smiles and strength once again return to the faces and hearts of the residents. This stands as a proof that despite the tragedy, unity, compassion, and heroism continue to live in the heart of every Filipino. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, Franco Baranda, SMNI News.
Following the magnitude 6.9 earthquake in Cebu, the SMNI Foundation Incorporated will also be heading to Mindanao to aid the victims of the magnitude 7.4 earthquake that shook Davao Oriental on the 11th of October 2025. If you would like to support the Foundation's ongoing mission, you may send your donations via GCash to 0995-284-9117 and 0917-714-1820. When we come back, China's trade with Southeast Asia surges nearly 10% in the first 9 months of the year, highlighting Beijing's growing economic influence across the ASEAN region. Don't go away. Newsline World will be back.
Maging alerto at handa tuwing may bagyo. Upang manatiling ligtas, narito ang ilang mahahalagang paalala. Manatili sa loob ng bahay. Iwasan ang paglabas, lalo na kung malakas ang ulan at hangin. Mag-imbak ng pagkain at malinis na tubig. Maghanda ng emergency kit. Manatiling updated sa lagay ng panahon. Maghanda ng mga flashlight at extra baterya. Panatilihing fully charged ang iyong cellphone. I-secure ang mahahalagang dokumento sa waterproof na lalagyan. Patayin ang kuryente, gas at tubig kung may banta ng pagbaha. Alamin ang iyong local emergency hotlines. Putulin o tapyasan ang mga sanga ng puno na maaaring mabuwal sa malakas na ulan at hangin. Lumikas agad kung inabisuhan ng mga otoridad. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa panahon ng kalamidad. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Isang pindot lang, pwede kang maka-jackpot. Mukhang masaya at easy money lang. Sa murang halaga, pwede ka na tumaya sa online gambling at e-casino apps. Mayroong sabong, slot machines, mahjong, poker at iba pa. Kailangan mo lang ng smartphone, e-wallet at internet. Pero ang aliw na ito, unti-unting nagiging bitag para sa mga Pilipino. Lalo na kung ang paborito mong artista o influencer ang mukha ng app. Mas madaling makaengganyo, diba? Parang safe naman kasi may kilalang mukha. Pero sa likod ng ngiti, sugal pa rin ang itinutulak. At syempre, mas madali ring itago ang pagkalulong sa bisyong ito. Walang pisikal na kasino o pasugod
sugalan, walang kaharap, walang accountability, kaya't mas lumalala ang adiksyon. Dagdag pa rito, maraming online gambling apps at walang regulasyon. Sa likod ng mga makukulay na interface at papremyo, nakatago ang problemang bumabalot ngayon sa bansa. Ang pagkalulong ng maraming Pilipino sa online gambling. Pwede maglaro kahit saan, kahit kailan, kahit sino, bata man o matanda, pwedeng malulong. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang pagkakalulong sa online gambling ay nagdudulot ng matinding stress at anxiety, pagkakabaon sa utang, pagkawasak ng pamilya, pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili. At tulad ng ibang bisyo, may mga senyales ito tulad ng hindi makapagpigil kahit walang pera, palihim na tumataya, pagpapabaya sa trabaho, pamilya o sarili. Sa bawat taya, may mga taong tunay na kumikita, mga malalaking negosyante at investors na negosyo ang bisyo ng masa. Para sa kanila, perang pumapasok lang ito. Pero para sa ordinaryong Pilipino, kabuhayan at relasyon ang nauubos. At ang masakit, tila matagal itong nahayaan. Hindi ito naging prioridad ng mga nakaupo sa taas hanggang sa sobrang lumala at halos naapektuhan na ang buong komunidad. Ngayon, sa dami ng nalulong at sa laki ng pinsalang naidulot, sa kapalalong umugong ang mga panukalang batas para higpitan ng online gambling, gaya ng pagbabawal sa paggamit ng e-wallets para tumaya, pagtaas ng minimum bet, mas mahigpit na identity verification, pag-block ng mga illegal na gambling sites, at bawasan o ipagbawal ang mga ads na target ang kabataan. Maaari itong magmukhang laro lang, pero sa katotohanan, isa itong sugal sa kinabukasan. Ang kita na dapat sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan o ipon na uubos sa sugal. At sa mundo ng online gambling, mas madali kang matalo kaysa manalo. Huwag hayaang sugal ang magdikta sa iyong buhay. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
Largest trading partner, accounting for 16.6% of the country's total foreign trade. Agriculture trade led by the gains with China's imports of farm products from ASEAN up to 15% year-on-year. Exports of textile machinery and raw materials also rose sharply, while imports of clothing from the region increased by about 9%. Customs officials attribute the continued growth to improved transportation links. This includes faster land, sea, and air routes that have strengthened supply chains and boosted regional economic ties. India and Canada have begun a diplomatic reset, holding their first high-level meeting since ties surged in 2023, following the killing of a Sikh separatist leader. Almar Fusuelo for the rest of the details.
India and Canada have agreed to rebuild trust and renew cooperation after months of diplomatic tension. Canada Foreign Minister Anita Anand met with Indian External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar in New Delhi to discuss plans to revive dialogue and strengthen economic and political ties. Both countries announced the resumption of ministerial-level discussions on trade and investment as part of an ambitious roadmap covering key sectors such as agriculture, technology, civil nuclear cooperation, and critical minerals. Jai Shankar said India is determined to restore and reinvigorate the mechanisms necessary to advance their partnership, stressing that both sides share democratic values and economic complementarities.
Both sides, for our meeting today, have prepared an ambitious roadmap to advance our cooperation in various domains, including trade, investment, agriculture, science and technology, civil nuclear collaboration, AI, critical minerals, and energy.
Anand said the discussions were part of efforts to elevate the bilateral relationship and reaffirmed that both governments are committed to a long-term partnership.
So this joint statement will discuss our mutual plans for re-engagement. It will inform Canadians and Indians alike that we are collectively committed to advancing this relationship now and in the long term, particularly when it comes to our mutual priorities in the Indo-Pacific.
Anand also met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who said their visit would help impart new momentum to bilateral relations. She later met Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal to discuss trade opportunities and later travel to Mumbai to meet business leaders. The two sides agreed
President Tuto Quiroga and Senator Rodrigo Paz Pereira outlined their visions for the country on Sunday, focusing on security and economic reforms ahead of the October 19 presidential runoff. This report from Jane Cudnita.
Former Bolivian President Tuto Quiroga took aim at drug trafficking, saying Bolivia must end its role as a cocaine exporter and strengthen regional security cooperation. He pledged to work closely with neighboring Brazil and Argentina to combat organized crime.
Lo primero que va a llegar para enfrentar el Banco Mundial, con el Tesoro que tuvimos un día antes, la relación con el Departamento de Estado, y generamos toda una serie de acuerdos institucionales para que el 8 de noviembre, asumiendo la presidencia y vicepresidencia, se acaben las filas en Bolivia. Y eso no requiere sacar un crédito.
Paz vowed to reopen relations with foreign governments, improve education, and resolve the country's fuel crisis by lifting roadblocks to allow fuel deliveries. The runoff election on October 19 will pit Quiroga's Libre Alliance against Paz's PDC. Both parties will wrap up their campaigns on Wednesday. With Bolivia facing inflation and fuel shortages, the next president will inherit tough choices between seeking international aid or pushing through domestic reforms. This has been Jane Cudnita, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro joined thousands of indigenous peoples and Caracas on Sunday to mark the Day of Indigenous Resistance, calling for unity to defend the country's sovereignty against imperialist threats. More on this from Eve Buenafe.
Waving the Venezuelan flag and donning an indigenous headdress, President Nicolas Maduro led a great march for peace and sovereignty in Caracas. The event commemorated the Day of Indigenous Resistance and was joined by thousands of supporters and community leaders. Maduro urged the strengthening of military, police, and popular unity to defend national sovereignty against imperialism, particularly the United States.
Que sepan los imperialistas, somos el pueblo de los come candela y jamás podrán con nosotros, ni por las buenas ni por las malas. Ni por las buenas ni por las malas. Jamás el imperialismo colonialista podrá con el pueblo de los come candela.
Maduro questioned whether the United States believes Venezuela could be colonized again, stressing that nobody surrenders in his country.
Pues que ellos creen que puede nuestro país ser colonizado otra vez. Pues que creen que nuestro pueblo les tiene miedo. Pues que creen que nuestro pueblo se va a rendir. Jamás. Aquí no se rinde nadie, carajo. Aquí lo que vamos es para adelante con la fuerza de los indios. Invencibles, rebeldes.
The president also warned of global instability and possible foreign aggression, citing what he called the world's lost rules. The event came amid heightened tensions following the U.S. military deployment in Caribbean waters and recent operations targeting alleged drug smuggling boats, operations that Caracas claims are aimed at justifying military actions. Supporters described the march as a symbol of unity between indigenous and non-indigenous Venezuelans, celebrating their shared resistance and commitment to peace. Eve Buenafe, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Bringing color and joy to Seoul's autumn nights, the 2025 Hangang Bitsum Festival lit up the Han River, delighting thousands of visitors and showcasing South Korea's vibrant spirit of innovation and celebration. Let's delve more to this with Daniela Polite.
Seoul's Hangang River dazzled spectators this weekend as thousands gathered for the 2025 Hangang Bitsum Festival, South Korea's largest waterfront laser art event, where nature, technology, and creativity merge in a breathtaking celebration of light. Local and international visitors flock to the riverbanks on Saturday night, braving the rain to witness powerful beams of light sweep across the night sky. The riverside was transformed into an open-air gallery filled with vivid light tunnels, dancing laser fountains, and illuminated bridges that painted Seoul's skyline in dazzling hues. Organized by the Seoul Metropolitan Government, the annual festival spans 6 islands along the Han River and celebrates the intersection of art, technology, and nature. This year's theme, Spectra of Light, featured 7 large-scale laser installations exploring how light interacts with the environment and human imagination. Beyond the stunning visual displays, more than 3,000 participants joined the Light Run, a 5-kilometer night race where runners adorned with LED lights formed a glowing ribbon along the riverside, symbolizing unity and movement in the heart of the city. Now in its 3rd year, the Hangang Bitsam Festival has cemented its place as a signature cultural event in Seoul's calendar, drawing both residents and tourists to celebrate the city's dynamic blend of innovation and artistry. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
The beauty of the Philippines has once again been recognized after Boracay, Palawan, and Siargao made it to the top 10 islands in Asia in the prestigious Condé Nast Traveler 2025 Reader's Choice Awards. Based on the results of the survey participated in by over 700,000 global travelers, Boracay ranked 4th, Palawan 5th, and Siargao 7th. Tourism Secretary Cristina Garcia Frasco stated that this recognition is proof of the beauty, resilience, and dedication of Filipinos in protecting the environment. She added that this recognition is the result of the collective efforts of tourism workers and communities. The Secretary also encouraged tourists to continue promoting responsible travel to preserve the natural beauty and vitality of the Philippine Islands. For today's showbiz news, 2 women are taking the spotlight. Naomi Watts joins Hollywood's elite with her Walk of Fame star, and Taylor Swift takes her record Breath Eras tour to new heights with a concert film and the Cure series. Stella Maurice has more on this.
Watts, known for acclaimed performances in films like The Impossible and King Kong, became the 2,825th celebrity to receive a star on the iconic Hollywood sidewalk. The ceremony took place in front of the historic Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, drawing a crowd of fans, press, and fellow actors. Present to support her were Billy Crudup, her husband, and her son Sasha Scriber, who Watts praised for attending straight from class. In her emotional speech, she also gave heartfelt thanks to her daughter Kai, stepson Will, and colleagues including Edward Norton, Sarah Paulson, and Jack Black, who added a touch of comedy by posing theatrically with her star. Watts also spoke candidly about facing the struggles of having imposter syndrome. Naomi joins the legacy of celebrated actors on the Walk of Fame, a milestone she called a symbol of all the rejections, risks, and relentless auditions that led to something truly beautiful. The honor was presented by the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, recognizing her contributions not only to film but to charitable causes and advocacy for women in entertainment. Taylor Swift is far from wrapping up her Eras Tour story. The global pop superstar is releasing a brand new concert film, this time featuring the entire final performance of her record-breaking tour in Vancouver, Canada. The film will include the full set from her 2024 album, The Tortured Poets Department, songs that weren't part of her first Eras Tour movie. And that's not all. Swifties are also getting a 6-part docuseries titled The End of an Era, premiering on Disney Plus on December 12th. The first 2 episodes will drop alongside the concert film, with new episodes coming out weekly after that. Expect cameos from some of her closest friends and collaborators: Ed Sheeran, Sabrina Carpenter, Florence Welch, Gracie Abrams, and fiancé Travis Kelce. The Eras Tour became a cultural phenomenon, 149 shows, 5 continents, and more than $2 billion in revenue. For fans, this double release offers the ultimate encore, reliving the music, the moments, and the behind-the-scenes magic of Taylor Swift's most iconic era yet. This is Stella Maris, your citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest show buzz.
In sports, Cape Verde has made football history after securing a 3-0 victory over Eswatini to qualify for the FIFA World Cup for the first time, becoming the second smallest nation ever to reach the tournament. Meanwhile, Europe's Ryder Cup players, including Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood, and Shane Lowry, are guaranteed entry into the DP World Tour season, ending playoffs even without meeting the usual ranking requirements. Carl De La Peña reports.
The victory in Praia secured the Blue Sharks the top spot in Group D, finishing ahead of African giants Cameroon to book their ticket to the 2026 World Cup in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Goals from Daylon Livramento, Willie Semedo, and veteran defender Stapira sealed the historic triumph in front of a jubilant home crowd and President Jose Maria Neves. With a population of just over 500,000, Cape Verde now follows Iceland as the smallest nation to ever reach football's biggest stage. Coach Bubista, who has led the team since 2020, guided the Blue Sharks with a disciplined and united squad, many of whom play abroad. Cape Verde joins Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Algeria, and Ghana as the first 6 African nations to secure qualification for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Meanwhile, a lesser-known provision in the DP World Tour rules grants automatic qualification for Ryder Cup team members to compete in the lucrative closing events in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Despite sitting outside the top 70 in the race to Dubai standings with Fleetwood at 94th and Lowry at 155th, both golfers are already assured of their places in the final stretch of the season. The rule, seen as a practical move by the tour, ensures top European stars remain part of its biggest tournaments, maintaining strong sponsorship and fan engagement. Rory McIlroy, currently leading the race to Dubai and chasing his 7th title, returns to play this week at the India Championship before the final events in South Korea and the Middle East. While some question the fairness of the exemption, officials argue it is a necessary measure to keep the DP World Tour competitive and commercially viable alongside its PGA Tour partnership. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo De La Peña, bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may be inspired with the words of the song. Do what is right, defend for what is right, and die for what is right. And as we keep track of the countdown, there's only 72 days left before Christmas. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Prince Tripoli. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.